Andre the Giant. Andre had a height of 224 centimeters and weighed 236 kilograms. Truly an insanely massive human being, and you can't find another one even if you look for it. But even though he was a giant and he was a superstar because of it, but it had a lot of setbacks. At the end of his life, when he was very rich, he said, "I'm willing to give up all my money to become a normal sized human for a week." Like for example, anytime I want, I could get on the airplane, get in the taxi, use the bathroom like a normal person, and when I'm eating, I can eat a normal amount of food. But let's go back in time and see where Andre came from. On the 19th of May 1946, right after World War II, Andre is born in the city north of Paris named Colomiers. In this place, especially after World War II, everybody was damn near starving because France was just getting back on its feet. But even though there was a shortage of food, Andre was a massive baby when he was born. He weighed 6 kilograms, so that means he weighed twice as much as a normal baby. So this means Andre was a giant when he was born until the very end. He was so much bigger than the other kids, when they would play football, they would always have him as a goalkeeper, and it was damn near impossible to score against him, because he would pretty much take over the entire goalie. When Andre is only 12 years old, he's already 190 centimeters and weighs 108 kilos. He's only 12. When he would get on the school bus, he would always take up 2 seats. But even though he was a massive human being, and he was pretty much double the size of his classmates, they would always make fun of him for it. Even though realistically he could have crushed them, but he didn't do anything about it, and he let them get to him. And this caused him to leave school at an early age to look for work. He found a job in a farm nearby. They wanted him as a tractor. But that was a joke. They just wanted him to do field work, which was extreme hard work. One day when Andre was working in the fields, he saw one of the landowners come with a Rolls Royce. Andre turns to his colleague and says, "One day I'm gonna have one of those cars." His colleague says, "That's a huge wish even for a guy your size." Anyways, Andre worked here from 12 years old until the age of 18. And at the age of 18, he decided to join the military. And this is at a time where the French army really likes volunteers and they accept pretty much everybody. But once they measured Andre the Giant, they realized, wow, we don't even have clothes that fit you, we don't have shoes, and you can't even fit in any military vehicle or helicopter. Which is why they had to deny him. So Andre pretty much was left with no job and he can't even get into the military. That's why he decided to move to Paris with the money he had made by farming to see if he can do anything about it. In the beginning of his Paris trip, a man named Robert Lodget sees Andre and asks him, "Are you looking for a job?" Andre says yes. Robert says, "I have the perfect job for you." And he takes him to a professional wrestling ring in Paris. And when the wrestling promoters saw Andre, they immediately hired him because he was one of a kind. This caused Andre to enter the professional wrestling world, and this is where he started to make actual good money. At this time, Andre is only 18 years old, but he's 213 centimeters and weighs 227 kilos. But this doesn't mean that his growing has stopped. He continues to grow each day. Anytime he would measure himself, he would realize that he's a centimeter taller, and that made him worried, which is why he went to the doctor to see if anything is wrong. After the doctors run tests on him, they realize that he has a rare condition called acromegaly. When a person has this condition, they continue to grow throughout their life. Not just their height, but their fingers, their arms, their jaw, their nose, their ears, everything. Andre the Giant's hands is one of the biggest hands in the world. But it's not the biggest because Robert Wadlow had the biggest hands in the world. Andre's fingers had a width of 40 millimeters. And that's double an adult male's finger size. The ring that would go on Andre's finger was so massive that you could put an egg through it. That's why when he wanted to shake hands, he wouldn't put his whole hands out, he would just put a finger, and that was enough for a handshake. Ever since they realized Andre had this condition, they always told him that you cannot have a long life with this, because eventually you will get so massive that your heart cannot handle it anymore. After a few years of wrestling in France, the WWE hires him, which was called the WWF at that time. And that's when he's making some real money, and he goes worldwide famous, not just in Europe. And because of his unique build, he was known as one of the most famous wrestlers at that time. But these were the good times because there was a lot of difficulties. Like his shoe size was a size 54 Europe. So every shoe he had to buy was custom made. Nobody sold his pants, shirt, anything. Everything had to be custom made to fit him. Don't even talk about gloves. As you know, the WWE has to go everywhere for shows. It's not just one place. And that means the wrestlers have to go places. This is a huge problem for Andre because he's a massive human being and he can barely get into taxis, and don't even talk about aisle seats in the airplane. So anytime they booked him seats, they would have to make sure that he has enough leg room in front of him. Usually had to be first class or the front row. When he went to the hotel, there was not even a bed that was good enough for him. So he would usually sleep on the ground. Andre has mentioned the worst place he has visited for a show was in Japan, because not only was the airport smaller, the taxis were tiny, and when he went to the hotel room, he could barely fit in the door. And when he saw the bed and the room, he started crying because there's no way he can even fit in this room. Another huge problem with Andre was using the restroom, and alongside that, using the shower. He would not fit in any toilet or proper shower. So anytime he woke up in the morning, it was a huge problem for him to get ready. You might say, what about his house? In his house, he had custom made everything so he can use it with ease. But just like we said, he was a wrestler that had to travel the world for shows, and he was barely at home. He was either staying at hotels or the houses of his relatives or friends. Andre was always insecure about how he looked and how massive he is, because people would look at him in the airport and point, and he would always let them get to him. Because of this insecurity and feeling depressed, he would always drink himself to make him feel better, especially drinking beer. Each beer can was like a sip for us. He would down beers like it's nothing. It has been written that Andre could drink 100 cans of beer in one day, which is insane. But drinking alcohol wasn't just because of his depression and stress. It was because of his body pain. Just like we said, he was always growing, and that would put a lot of stress on his body, especially his bone. That's why he always had pain in the back everywhere, and the alcohol would numb the pain. After a while of drinking like this, the doctors told him, you have to stop drinking alcohol, because not only is it terrible for your health, it's also making you gain a lot of weight. And the more weight you gain, the more pressure you're putting on your heart, shortening your life. Andre was a very stand-up guy. When he heard this from the doctor, he immediately put away the alcohol and became a sober person. But this didn't mean that his problems were over. The pain continued to come and put a lot of pressure on his bodies, especially back and knees. His knees got to a point where he couldn't even walk without help, so he would have to walk around in crutches. And when this happened, he was forced to retire from the WWE. And when this happened, he decided to kind of travel and somewhat move back to France. When you get to 1993, Andre's father passes away, and he goes back to France to attend his funeral. And in his funeral, he takes this picture with his mother and uncle, which is his last photo ever taken. Only 3 days after this picture, Andre the Giant dies of heart failure. He was only 46 years old. This was terrible for his mother because not only did she lose her husband, she also lost her son in the same week. This was the story of Andre the Giant, and he's known as a blessing and a curse. He had a body that made him world famous, but that same body made his life miserable and eventually killed him.